Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to Stanford University. When one travels from the town of Tanway, the westernmost part of the Rakhine state in Myanmar, to Merauke, the easternmost part of Papua in Indonesia, a distance of 5,000 kilometers would have been traveled, equivalent to that between San Francisco and New York. And one travels from the town of Nokmung, the northernmost town of Myanmar, to Boa, the southernmost part of Nusa Tenggara in Indonesia, distance of 4,000 kilometers would have been covered, equivalent to that between London and Tehran. These are longitudinal and latitudinal poles of a region that involve 4 time zones and depict its enormity and diversity. Southeast Asia is arguably one of the world's most dynamic yet overlooked regions in the world. Its historical, ecological, anthropological, cultural, economic, civilizational, and geopolitical characteristics should be a beacon for global intrigue and interest. With around 700 million people, being the 3rd largest population in the world after India and China, producing goods and services amounting to $4 trillion, being the 6th largest economy in the world after the US, the EU, China, Germany, and Japan, and myriad dialects, ethnicities, races, and religious beliefs, the region deserves to occupy much of the world's conversation. Much still needs to be done by those who care about changing the world's position within the periphery of global consciousness. The story is there, yet it requires storytellers. Storytellers who can effectively convey the region's relevance to the global community. The world's largest known volcanic eruption that ever occurred was in Toba in Sumatra about 75,000 years ago. Around 2,800 cubic kilometers of volcanic ash and lava exploded into the atmosphere, causing severe climate disruptions for many years across the world, reducing the global human population to a few thousands. A story about the region that many may not be aware of. Southeast Asians do not tell stories at scale, to themselves, not to the rest of the world. Of the estimated 130 million books that would have been published since the invention of the printing press in the 15th century, only 370,000 titles have been published about Southeast Asia. A region that represents around 9% of the world population is narrated in only 0.2% of the books in the world. Southeast Asia has also stood the test of time in the last couple of thousand years by maintaining relative peace and stability despite being graced by natural disasters, different civilizational, spiritual, religious, economic, political, and geopolitical influences from India, China, Arabian Peninsula, Europe, and Japan. This is an attribute that needs to be amplified in the wake of increasing cultural pessimism. With peace and stability as a significant achievement, the region must also invest in other key priority areas. One area relates to the promotion of the intersection between power and talent. The dearth of such intersection is what may have hindered Southeast Asia from attaining even greater shared prosperity, moving up the value chain in the global geopolitical order. A second area is the region's diversity, which serves both as an advantage and disadvantage in terms of nature. Southeast Asia is home to more than 600 species of reef-building coral, representing more than 50% of the world's coral reefs, a habitat of around 1/3 of the world's marine life, grows half of the planet's mangrove trees, which are instrumental in mitigating the adverse effects of climate change. The region also has some of the world's largest hydrocarbon reserves. The region's diversity is not only ecological, it is economic. The economies of the region have also diverged since the early 1970s, manifested in Laos' GDP per capita of less than $2,000 and Singapore's $91,000. These kinds of diversity must be taken a view of in order for the region to chart a better path towards shared prosperity and sustainability. In terms of governance, members of the region have ostensibly taken divergent paths as to find what is best and lasting for the people. The region has gradually learned more about the workings of a democracy. Brunei, Cambodia, Malaysia, and Thailand are monarchical, yet different in their day-to-day management. While Brunei is an absolute monarchy, the other three countries are politically multi-party and have systems of constitutional democracy. Vietnam and Laos are not multi-party systems, whereas the remaining countries, Indonesia, Myanmar, Philippines, and Singapore, are not monarchical and subject to a one-party system. In essence, the 7 countries in Southeast Asia that embrace a multi-party system represent around 83% of the region's GDP and population. This foundation warrants a path for more robust democratization in the future. Yet the region's democratization cannot only be manifested in the distribution of power. It must be manifested in the distribution of public goods, including education, healthcare, welfare, social value, and moral value. On the economy, in the last 30 years, Southeast Asia's GDP per capita has grown by a factor of 2.7 times compared to China's 9 times. It's largely attributable to 4 factors: the underinvestment in education, the underinvestment in infrastructure, governance, and lack of competitiveness. The region has and must continue taking a view on these factors. In terms of Southeast Asia's level of development and modernity, 8 out of 10 economies still earn at a GDP of less than $13,205 per capita per year. 9 out of 10 economies still consume steel at a rate of less than 500 kilograms per capita per year. 8 out of 10 economies are still electrified at less than 6,000 kilowatt hour per capita. Implicit in some of these is that Singapore has stood out as an exception. An increasing ability to cultivate and project a global image of competence, integrity, and accountability will enable Southeast Asia to more effectively attract both economic and technological capital that could help the region in moving up the value chain, the global geopolitical order, and attaining its development goals. The current economic environment, partly characterized by the insistence to eliminate trade asymmetries through a principle of reciprocity, not only marks a departure from the pre-existing multilateral trade governance, but also a more pronounced realignment of the pre-existing multipolar world. Southeast Asia must capitalize on the increasingly structured multipolar world order by focusing on attaining both economic and affordable technological capital allocation from the world. The US and her friends are blessed with abundant economic and technological capital that will need to be reallocated for diversification and risk-adjusted return purposes. China, on the other hand, continues to offer technological capital that is increasingly more affordable. This makes both the US and China indispensable inevitabilities for many, including the region of Southeast Asia. The concept of sustainability has become a central tenet of development policy in the 21st century, as countries strive to balance economic growth with environmental protection. However, the paradox of sustainability arises from the equally high expectations placed upon both developed and developing economies to achieve sustainable development. the attainment of carbon neutrality in 25 years by the year 2050, reasserted at the COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, is a narrative that must be aspirational, not ideological. As with food, the region that is blessed with vast blue food resources is being largely maritime, is paradoxically one that still struggles in increasing its protein intake. There's no debate as to whether there's a technological solution to the world's problem as it relates to sustainability. The debate is about affordability. The developing world, which comprises 84% of the world's planet population, cannot afford electricity at a rate of more than 5 to 7 cents per kilowatt hour. Still disproportionately less than the price point at which most renewable technological innovation can currently be procured. Only a non-linear technological breakthrough would bring about disproportionately greater cost, efficiency, and effectiveness. Resolving the sustainability paradox is much of the developing world. It presents an opportunity for both technological and economic capital allocators. For the region to reach electrification per capita of 6,000 kilowatt, except for Singapore and Brunei, which are already modern, it must build around 900,000 megawatts worth of power generation capabilities. That's going to cost $1.8 trillion. This depicts the Herculean task for the region to more carefully think about how to attain the necessary economic and technological capital. The forward vector for Southeast Asia is undeniably inseparable from the degree to which it invests in education. Most households in the region are headed by those without any tertiary education. A positive disruption to education in the region can more quickly take place at the schools. Teaching is more scalable than parenting. This underlines the importance of investing in high-quality teachers, teachers who can educate the citizenry into becoming better at translating uncertainties into less uncertainties, uncertainties into a set of risks that can be quantified and priced so that the attainment of capital, be it economic or technological, is more of a certainty. Capital likes risk, provided that they can be measured and priced. There are around 8,000 universities and 18 million students in Southeast Asia, compared to around 2,600 universities and 40 million students in China. Ostensible technological innovation and high marginal productivity in China clearly speak of how the investment in high-quality teaching and sending their scholars to the best academic domains throughout the world, including the US, have helped move China from being a developing to a developed economy, to the very core of global consciousness, while uplifting the many. Long-term thinking is both a rare commodity and an endangered species nowadays. This is why I enjoy conversing with geologists who have an innate ability to think in timescales of hundreds of millions of years. Southeast Asia has produced leaders who have the sheer ability to think long-term out of nature, necessity, or empathy for the future. The likes of Ho Chi Minh, King Bhumibol Adulyadej, Lee Kuan Yew, Sukarno, Tunku Abdul Rahman, and of course, SBY, thought very carefully about how the region would not only transition into a post-colonial world, but also persist in the core of global consciousness. Without prevaricating, not everybody succeeded in executing their respective long-term aspirations. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, is well positioned to raise the quality of education in Southeast Asia. Using its dialogue processes, ASEAN countries could draw on best practices from each other and the rest of the world to create regional standards for education. This can still be construed as not eroding into ASEAN's principle of subsidiarity. One of the many purposes of this event, the Southeast Asia Summit and Roundtables on Prosperity and Sustainability, is to listen, to share, and to exchange ideas and thought processes from thought leaders from Stanford and Southeast Asia. Some may be contrary to conventional wisdom, but certainly with the hope of being catalytic in finding solutions to humanity as to provide and put food on the table, to modernize and to sustain. Some may enter this room with pessimism or even apathy, but many others, particularly those from Southeast Asia, with optimism. This kind of optimism that is manifested in the belief that Stanford and Southeast Asia could someday be each other's top of mind when it comes to not only finding the necessary scientific or technological solution, but applying it at scale in a region of scale. I have told you the story of Southeast Asia that stretches from 75,000 years ago till today. The story of tomorrow will depend on how the story lingers and resonates. Today and tomorrow will include discussions on energy security, food security, governance, economic capital formation, geothermal, nuclear, batteries, future of manufacturing, academic to academic collaboration, and AI. Please sign up to the roundtable discussions tomorrow. All these will offer differing perspectives and be catalytic in creating more storytellers and community multipliers. With much gratitude to the Precourt Institute for Energy, the Dorr School of Sustainability, and the Hoover Institution. Thank you.